I still remember the sound of the door slamming shut. It was louder than it needed to be, like she wanted it to echo in my head forever. My name is Marcus, and 3 years ago, my wife, Elena, decided she was done with me. Not because I cheated. Not because I was a bad husband. No. She left because I was broke. The restaurant I'd invested everything into had just gone under. I was behind on bills, driving a beat-up car, and working night shifts just to keep food on the table. I thought we were in this together, for better or worse, right? Wrong. Elena was always drawn to shiny things, fancy dinners, designer bags, luxury trips. At first, I worked hard to give her all of that. But when life hit me hard, she didn't want to fight through it with me. "You're dragging me down," she said that morning, tossing her engagement ring onto the counter like it was some cheap trinket. I didn't sign up to be poor. Those words carved a permanent scar on my pride. She packed her things and left, just like that. No kiss goodbye. No hug. No tears. Just silence. But what she didn't know, was that I wasn't staying down for long. After Elena left, the apartment felt like a hollow shell. Her perfume still lingered in the air, mocking me. I sat on the worn-out couch, staring at the door she walked out of, wondering how everything had collapsed so fast. I gave myself a week to grieve. Just 1 week. Then I got up. I shaved, I made a plan, and I got to work. See, I had always been good with numbers, better than I was at cooking, truth be told. Before the restaurant, I dabbled in finance, investing here and there. I just never took it seriously because the dream was food, until that dream turned into a nightmare. So I went back to what I knew. Quietly. Relentlessly. I started day trading during the early hours, flipping thrift store finds for profit, coding simple websites for small businesses. I devoured every course I could find on investing, passive income, crypto, real estate, you name it. It wasn't glamorous. It was 18-hour days, cheap coffee, and no social life. But slowly, it started paying off. Month by month, my savings grew. I moved out of the tiny apartment into a condo. Bought a new car, nothing flashy, just reliable. But the real win? I opened a financial consulting firm. First 1 client. Then 10. Then 50. Within 2 years, my name was circulating in rooms I never dreamed I'd be invited into. And right when I had finally moved on, she called. Elena.it started with a text. Just a simple, "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time, unsure if I was hallucinating. Her name flashing on my phone after all this time felt surreal. My heart didn't skip a beat, it didn't even flinch. That part of me? Numb. I didn't reply. An hour later, another message came. "I saw your name on Forbes. Is that really you?" Ah. There it was. The real reason she was reaching out. Turns out one of my clients, an athlete I helped get out of tax trouble, shouted me out in an interview. "Marcus Palmer saved my life financially," he said on national TV. Then came the features, the podcast invites, the attention. I guess Elena finally noticed. She called next. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail, her voice softer than I remembered. Almost pitiful. "Marcus, I know I hurt you. I was going through a lot. I made a mistake. I'd love to see you. Please." That "please" hit differently. Because 3 years ago, I was begging her to stay. Now she was begging me for a chance. But this wasn't a fairy tale. And I wasn't the same man she left. I debated for a while. Not because I still loved her, but because I wanted to look her in the eye, and show her what she gave up. So I sent back 2 words, "Let's meet." We agreed to meet at a cafe downtown, neutral territory. The place was upscale, quiet, and exactly the kind of spot she used to drag me to when I could barely afford a coffee. I arrived 10 minutes early. She arrived 10 minutes late. And when she walked in, she looked different. Still beautiful, yes, but there was something hollow behind her eyes. A little older. A little worn. Like life had humbled her in ways I never could. She spotted me instantly and smiled, like we were long-lost lovers instead of ghosts from a broken past. "Marcus," she breathed out, sliding into the seat across from me. "Elena." Silence stretched between us for a second too long. "I almost didn't recognize you," she said finally. "You look different." I smirked. "Success will do that." She flinched. Just slightly. But I saw it. She cleared her throat. I've been following your story. I'm proud of you. Really. You always had potential." I raised an eyebrow. "Funny. I don't remember you saying that when you walked out." She looked down at her hands, twisting a napkin. "I was scared, Marcus. I didn't know how to handle everything crashing down. I panicked." "No," I said calmly. "You calculated. You chose comfort over commitment." Her eyes watered. "I'm not here to fight. I miss you." There it was. That line. But this time, it didn't pull at my heart. It only fueled my clarity. "You miss the idea of me, Elena. Not the man I became when no one was clapping." She blinked, stunned. I leaned in. "And now that I've built something from nothing, you suddenly remember who I am." Her voice cracked. "I made a mistake, Marcus. Please. Just, give me another chance." I leaned back in my chair, calm and collected. "Why?" I asked. "So you can leave again the next time life gets hard." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Because there was nothing to say. She knew I was right. The silence between us this time wasn't awkward. It was heavy. Weighted with all the things she didn't say when she walked out. And now. Too late. "I'm not that man anymore," I told her. "I was willing to suffer for us. You weren't." She wiped the corner of her eye, quickly. "I thought money would fix everything. But the man I left you for. He cheated. Twice. Took my savings. Left me with debt. Karma, I guess." I didn't flinch. I just sipped my coffee. She looked at me like I was her last lifeline. "I'm not asking for anything. Just a chance. We were good together once, Marcus," I laughed. Softly. Sadly. "No, Elena. I was good to you. You were good to the lifestyle." That hit her. Hard. She leaned forward, desperate now. "But you still haven't said no." And that's when I did something she didn't expect. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out an envelope, and slid it across the table. "What's this?" she asked, confused. "Closure," I said. "Inside is a check for the exact amount you invested in our marriage, your half of the restaurant loss. I don't owe it to you legally, but I want this chapter closed with dignity." She opened it, hands shaking. Her eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." She stared at me, completely disarmed. "So that's it?" I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and gave her a calm smile. "That's it. You left a broke man. You'll never meet the rich one." And with that, I walked away. I stepped out of the cafe into the sun, not looking back once. It felt clean. Like I had just closed a door that had been open for far too long. The past wasn't holding me hostage anymore. But as I reached my car, parked just around the corner, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. "Marcus, wait." I turned slowly. Elena stood there, holding the check in both hands like it was burning her palms. "I can't take this," she said. "Not like this." I crossed my arms. "Why not? You wanted a second chance." "That's the only one I'm offering, peace." "No," she said, voice cracking. "I wanted you. Not your money. I messed up, yes, but I see that now. I see you." For a brief moment, something flickered in her eyes. Regret? Shame? Or just desperation? But I didn't budge. "You left me because I was empty-handed," I said coldly. "Now you're the one with nothing, and I'm supposed to pretend like you didn't throw me away?" Her lip quivered. "So, this is revenge?" I shook my head. "No. This is growth." And with that, I opened the car door, my matte black Mercedes, and slid inside. Before closing it, I added one last thing. "Elena, the best thing you ever did for me was leave." I shut the door. Drove off. And never looked back. She had walked away from the broke man. But the rich one? He made sure she'd only see him in headlines. 3 weeks passed. I didn't hear from Elena again. No texts. No calls. Nothing. But that wasn't the end of it. See, what she didn't know was this: our little meeting had consequences she hadn't accounted for. I had friends in places she once bragged about wanting to be part of, investor circles, luxury social clubs, even a startup incubator where her new boyfriend had once begged for funding. And guess who sat on the board now? Me. Turns out, the man she left me for, the one who had more to offer, had pitched a half-baked crypto scheme to my firm 6 months earlier. I didn't block it out of spite. I passed because it was garbage. But now I knew who was behind it. And it all made sense. I didn't make a call. I didn't need to. My silence said more than revenge ever could. But the universe? It moves in circles. Weeks later, a friend of mine sent me a link. Elena had just filed for bankruptcy. Her ex had drained what little was left in her accounts. Her social feed, once filled with champagne selfies and vacation sunsets, was suddenly scrubbed clean. And me? I was preparing to close my biggest deal yet, a multi-million-dollar partnership that would put my company on the global map. One night, I stared at my phone, her number still saved but untouched. I thought about deleting it. Then I smiled, and left it there. Not because I wanted her to call again. But because it reminded me how far I'd come. She left me because I was broke. And now? Now I was untouchable. Months passed. Life moved forward, without the weight of the past dragging behind me. Business was booming. My name was popping up on podcasts, finance panels, and even in a few top 30 under 30 lists. I had everything I thought I wanted. But something was missing. Not Elena. That chapter was over. It was something else, someone else. And then I met Sierra. She wasn't flashy. She didn't care about what I drove or how many zeros were in my bank account. We met at a charity event I almost skipped. She was organizing a fundraiser for inner-city youth, and I was there as a silent donor. She spilled coffee on my shoes. Apologized 5 times. Laughed when I told her they were knockoffs from a clearance sale, just to see her reaction. She smiled and said, "Good. I was worried you'd be one of those designer label types." That's when I knew, she was different. We talked for hours that night. No filters. No ego. No performances. She asked about my failures, not my fortune. She cared about the journey, not just the destination. She listened, really listened, when I told her about the nights I used to sleep on my restaurant floor, cold and alone. And when I told her about Elena, she didn't judge. She just said, "Sometimes you lose people to find peace." I knew then, this was what I'd been building toward. Not just success, but substance. That it happened on a random Saturday. Sierra and I were out shopping, nothing fancy. Just grabbing a few things for her new apartment. We were laughing about something, probably my terrible cooking, when we walked into a boutique she liked. And that's when it happened. I saw her first. Elena. She was behind the counter, folding clothes. She looked up, and froze. Our eyes locked. A flicker of disbelief crossed her face. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She wasn't just shopping, she was working there. Sierra, unaware, leaned in and whispered, "Do you think this color suits me?" holding up a sweater. I barely managed a nod. "Yeah. Looks great." Elena finally spoke. "Marcus," Sierra turned to her with a warm smile. "Hi. Do you know him?" Elena's eyes darted between us. Her voice shook slightly. "We used to." I stepped in. Calm. Unshaken. "This is Sierra," I said, gently placing a hand on Sierra's back. "My fiancée." Elena's face dropped. Sierra extended a kind hand. "Nice to meet you." Elena didn't move for a second. Then, slowly, she shook Sierra's hand, the weight of everything she'd lost written all over her face. She tried to smile. "Congratulations." "Thank you," Sierra said brightly. "He's pretty amazing." I looked Elena in the eye one last time and said, "Take care, Elena." Then we turned and walked out, together. Sierra never asked who she was. She didn't need to. Because what mattered most wasn't the woman I left behind. It was the one walking beside me now. Weeks later, I found myself alone on the balcony of our new home. The city lights stretched out beneath me, a silent reminder of how far I'd come. Sierra was inside, humming as she arranged books on the shelf, her laugh occasionally floating through the air like music. It was peaceful. Real. I thought about the road that brought me here. About Elena. About the silence, the hunger, the days when the world felt like it was crashing down on me. And I realized something: sometimes people walk away because they only see the chapter you're stuck in, not the story you're still writing. Elena saw a man who failed. Sierra saw a man who refused to stay down. That was the difference. It wasn't about money. Or revenge. Or proving a point. It was about rediscovering who I really was when there was nothing left but grit. And in the end, the pain. The heartbreak. The betrayal. It all became fuel. Because rock bottom didn't destroy me, it built the foundation for everything I have now. So if you're ever left behind. If someone chooses comfort over commitment. Let them go. Because when you rise, they'll regret it. But you'll smile. Because you'll know the truth, you were never the problem. You were the lesson. That it came late one night. I was sitting in my office, going over some contracts, when my phone buzzed. A single text. From Elena. "I saw your engagement photos. She looks happy. You look whole." I stared at the message for a moment. No anger. No bitterness. Just a quiet reminder of what was. Then, another message followed. "I just wanted to say. I'm sorry. Not for leaving, but for not believing in you." For a second, I thought about replying. Thought about saying something kind. Or maybe something honest. But I didn't. Because closure doesn't always come through conversation. Sometimes it comes through silence. I locked my phone, leaned back in my chair, and looked over at a photo of Sierra on my desk, laughing, radiant, completely unaware of the shadows that once followed me. I had everything I needed. Elena was a chapter. Sierra was the story. And this time, it was a love built on truth. Not conditions. Not wealth. Not status. Just us. The man I became was born from pain. But the man I chose to be. He was built for joy. The wedding was simple. Elegant. Just the way Sierra wanted it. No extravagant guest lists. No press. No pretending. Just real people, and real love. As I stood at the altar, watching her walk down the aisle, I felt something I hadn't in years, not just peace, but purpose. I wasn't chasing validation anymore. I wasn't proving anything to anyone. I had already won. Not because of the money. Not because of the success. But because I became a man I was proud of, without needing anyone's permission. Sierra reached me, her eyes shining. I took her hand, and in that moment, everything clicked. The betrayal. The heartbreak. The nights I thought I'd never recover. They were all stepping stones. Not curses, gifts. Gifts that carved out space for something better to enter my life. As we exchanged vows, I caught a glimpse of a guest in the back, someone I hadn't expected to see. Elena. She was there. No drama. No interruptions. Just quiet acceptance. She gave a small nod, then slipped away before the reception. It didn't matter. Her presence was symbolic. She was the storm. Sierra was the calm after. And me? I was the man forged in the fire. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't rage. It's rising.